Orchids make great house plants, and they're so easy to take care of, and yet many people struggle with them. The single biggest reason people kill orchids is improper watering. And today I'm going to show you a really simple way to water your orchids that's guaranteed never to kill one. If you've been looking at social media, you probably came across the IceCube method for watering orchids. You take a couple ice cubes and put them down here by the roots. And that method sort of works, but think about this. This is a tropical plant. It doesn't like cold water at the roots. That's just a really silly way to water your orchids. The main question people ask is, how often should I water my orchid? They're looking for some sort of a regular schedule that will work. And there isn't one. Don't ask your friends when they water their orchids. And don't get on social media and ask people there. Your house is very different than everybody else's house. And it changes throughout the year. So in summer, this orchid is getting more light and it's warmer, so it's growing faster. It uses more water and needs to be watered more often. In winter, it's cooler, there's less light, orchids are growing less, they need to be watered less. But in some climates, like up here in the north, we heat our homes, and that air is very dry. So depending on how much humidity we add to the house, our orchids need more or less water. The frequency of watering changes throughout the year. So don't water on a schedule. So how do you tell when the orchid needs to be watered? It's actually really simple. You have a built-in water meter. It's called a finger. So you take your finger, stick it in the pot, wiggle it down a little ways, and see if you feel moisture. If you feel moisture, don't water. If it's completely bone dry, it's time to water. It's really that simple. Now, you might not want to stick your finger into the pot all the time, so while you do that, also take the pot and lift it. Try to feel how heavy it is. Now, at first, this won't mean a lot to you because you're not experienced with the plant. But after a few weeks, you'll know by the weight of the plant whether it needs to be watered. Alright, so I've stuck my finger in the pot, it's bone dry, it's time to water. Since I'm going to water, I want to ask another question before I actually do the watering. Is it time to fertilize this plant? Because I can do both at the same time. Orchids need very little fertilizer. So once a month at most, give it a little bit of fertilizer. For this video, I'm going to assume that it's time to fertilize, and I'll show you how I do that. So I use a water-soluble fertilizer. It doesn't really matter which one you use. As long as it's sort of balanced. The 777 works fine, but any other combination numbers, as long as you have some NPK in there, will work. By the way, there is no such thing as orchid fertilizer. Orchid fertilizer is simply a marketing tool to sell you a more expensive product. So I use any good water-soluble fertilizer that I use for my other house plants, and I use it. I have a little bit in here. And what I'll do is I'll just take my finger and scoop a little bit out like this. Then I sprinkle that on top of the pot. That little bit of fertilizer is lots. Alright, so now it's time to water my orchid. My orchids tend to have two pots, an inner pot that has holes so water can drain out, and an outer decorative pot. And I just leave the two together, take them to the sink, and almost fill it with water. And I'm pouring the water right over that water-soluble fertilizer, pushing that fertilizer throughout the pot. Now I fill it to almost full, so the water level is about here. I don't want any of the bark in the pot to start floating. Right? I might take the pot and just Lift it up a couple times to help mix the fertilizer in. And that's it. Now it's time to go have a coffee or go have your breakfast. In 10, 20, 30, 40 minutes, it's not really that critical, but I try not to wait more than 30 minutes. The watering process is done. The bark has absorbed water, the roots have absorbed some water. Because the fertilizer is also in the water, the plant has also absorbed nutrients, and the watering process is done. Go back to your sink, pull out your inner pot, and let it drain well. And you're done. Don't water again until it's bone dry. If you want to know how to repot an orchid, I have some other videos that will show you how to do that. And if you want to know how to flower them, come over to my website. I have a blog called Garden Fundamentals, and I have numerous posts there about taking care of orchids and how to rebloom them.